Hey y'all, I'm Aeon.
And I'm the Lioness.
And you're listening to Box number 512 podcast.
Grown Black Trans Woman Talk. Changing your world one conversation at a time.
The show begins now. Welcome to another installment of Box number 512 podcast, Grown Black Trans Woman Talk. I am your co-host, Aeon.
And I'm the Lioness.
So let's get to it. Last season, if you were able to listen to last season, we did a very popular episode, which was our second episode titled Trans Woman as the Default. So in this episode, we talked about how as trans women that are looking to date and partner with cis, heterosexual, trans-amorous men, how you need to be mindful that the men that you are pursuing has set his life up in a way where he is fully ready to engage you as a trans woman or to consider you as an option to include in your life and be a fair and equitable and ready partner. A lot of you really responded very positively to the episode. It's one of our highest rated episodes, most listened to episodes. We also ranked it our favorite episode in our year-end review. And based off of conversations that the Lioness and I have had offline, we felt it imperative to return back to this conversation and just to add a little more, well, not add a little more to it, but okay, so you listen to the episode, what's next?
Right.
What's next? So I think we want to take this time out to really unpack and explore the possibilities of what next could be once you trans women are looking for men who have trans women as the default, and for you trans-amorous men listeners who are now close or you're at the point where you're ready to partner with trans women and consider a trans woman as serious relationship partners. So sis, come on in.
Well, what's exciting about this episode is I remember it as our second one ever. I remember you and I both have these really, really dynamic conversations, but kind of but it's organic for us. So like what you guys are watching is not something that we've like scripted or thought out. Like we basically say, oh, this is what we're going to talk about. And then we just do it. And this is the magic of what we have and why we decided to do this. But at the second episode, I remember thinking like, we're going to have this really, really deep conversation. How will we be received? Is this going to be, now I know not to give a fuck about those things. See, but at the time I was like, how are we going to be received? I was wondering, is this going to be something that we're going to put out here? And how long are we going to be doing this, to be honest? Just hoping that it will go for a while, but just wondering. For all of these things were in my mind. But I had the privilege of listening back, and I am impressed with how vulnerable we were, how direct we were, how raw we were. I think we were still learning out each other's flow back then, but you could still hear like our genuine like passion for the subject matter. And we read the shit out of these men, and we said a lot of different things. So what we talked about in our initial episode was trans is the default. And we were talking about how in our lives, we went through this journey as women in self-discovery, and how at the beginning of our transitions, we felt a way about ourselves, and our insecurities manifested in the way that we saw men and the way that we selected partners. And we were looking for men that had this certain look and certain behavior and certain action. And we were hesitant to embrace men that were embracing us. And as a part of that evolution, Brianna and I got to the place where we understood that we needed men that knew what they were fucking doing sexually, physically, spiritually, wanted to be with us, wanted to be engaged in a way that was meaningful. And we decided that what we were actually looking for partners is men where trans was the default. Meaning a man that would want you because of who you are, not in spite of who you are. A man that is choosing to say in this relationship, not that he has to always have said he likes trans women, but from this point forward, I am comfortable making a proclamation to the world that this is what I like. And what we would actually prefer is if it would be great if you could have done that before you met us. And that we talked about all of those different factors and all of the socioeconomic factors, all of the intersections, the political stuff. We talked about all of that in that episode. But what we realized was it's trans is the default. Right. That's great. There's been a lot of new content providers. There's a lot of new conversations being had. There are groups. There are now men that are coming forward that are saying, I like them. I like women with a penis, as they word it. But trans is the default is simply you getting to the place with yourself where you're willing to be honest and authentic with the world. But is that really something that you should be getting a badge of honor for? That you are finally now living in your truth? And what does that mean for the women that you're engaging with? And what does that require from you as men to engage with us more effectively? And so this conversation was trans is the default. Now what? Now that you've gotten to this recollection in your spirit and your life and your mind that I like trans women, what now does that require of you? What do you think that require of you, trans-amorous men listening? And for the women, what does that require of our partners? What do we expect from them after they've made this revelation? Brianna, what are your thoughts?
I have many thoughts. First, I want to go back to what you said a little bit. How you said, I don't know if you said it or if it made me think this. Like, okay, you are open to dating trans women. That's great, but you don't get a prize or like special rewards for dating trans women.
Yes.
And oftentimes, what I've experienced is you have these men that get to this point that are ready to openly proclaim it, but then it can sort of become a pass for their bad behaviors while they're with you. And the whole thing is, well, I'm out here, I'm being open, so doesn't that count for something? And it's like, no, actually you don't. Like, you should be at a space where you should be able to openly affirm yourself, but that doesn't give you a pass to engage in bad behavior. So I think that takes me to my next point. I think we have to start here. We have to have a conversation about feminism and a feminist politic, especially when you are choosing to engage in a community with a particular type of woman that is so oppressed.
Yes.
That is so oppressed. And you as a trans-amorous man, you're going to have to show up in ways where a lot of time you as the man are just going to have to give more to the relationship. And giving more doesn't mean finance or materialistic things, but giving more in a way that doesn't require trans women to do the intensive labor to make you a better man. And I think I think it's imperative that, and when I bring in like what these men have in a feminist politic, and basically what we know is, in general terms, feminism means the equal treatment of men and women. Women can be feminists and men can be feminists. But I think it's important because a lot of times you have these men that come into this community and they are they might like trans women, but they are anti-trans as fuck, or they're transphobic as fuck, and they jump into these relationships and they wonder why they run into these same problems with trans women when you're low-key trying to do this like nice guy oppression thing where, well, I'm here, I'm liking you, but you're still engaging in ways that oppress me and that devalues my humanity. So I think we have to start with challenging men to come into a feminist framework, because it's not enough to just say she's pretty, I like her. If you are not in tune to her life experience and how she moves through the world as a trans woman, and how you as a man have to first acknowledge that you have privilege, but you're going to have to do, if you're really going to be in a relationship, you have to make sure that your life is set up in a way where you're able to provide a little bit of a safety net, to provide a safety net to make sure that you are going above and beyond to be a support for her. Does that, do you get what I'm saying, sis?
1,000%, 1,000%. Sorry, I had to close the
Because
door.
I don't know, I just feel like, especially when we're in these groups, I feel like it's a flattening of the narrative. Well, it's always like, well, y'all always talking to us men about what we're doing, but you women are doing the same exact thing to us. And I'm like, yeah, that may be true, but you still have to acknowledge that at the end of the day, trans women will never be able to have nowhere near the amount of privilege as cis men, and it plays out in our relationship dynamics. It
It
plays.
does. It
Go
does.
ahead, sis.
It does. And something that you said is very powerful that you're going into right now is we are a community that is used to being critiqued. We are a community that is used to telling the world telling us everything that is wrong about ourselves. We are the community that has been dubbed abomination by many of the dominant religions in our country. We are the group that understands what it is to know we have flaws and we are problematic and we have issues. But what we are asking you to do is have, when Brianna said a little bit earlier about giving a little more, we mean give a little more patience, have a little bit more compassion, a little bit more understanding that that along with that woman and that penis you want is a person that has been damaged, marginalized, that may not have the best access to have mental health care to address traumas. Like, you're deciding to address an entire human being when you say you want to date us. And what we're saying is, as you being trans-amorous and saying I like us, and what we're observing in community is that there's this mentality that of judgment, of oppression, of you furthering this narrative that we're damaged, that we're flawed, and y'all need to get y'all shit together. When, to be transparent, we are the way we are largely in part because of a lot of Black men and the way they've engaged with us, be it family, be it personal, be it interpersonal relationships, be it the gay men that turn their back on us sometimes, be it the men that are killing us and the men that are engaging with us in a way that's less than what we deserve. Bottom line is that we as a community are tired of every time we address something, every time we bring up something, every time we dare to have a thought that isn't about you or wanting to fuck you, that we are judged and everything is thrown back up in our face as if you don't understand how we got where we are. But you get mad when we say, okay, well, we're going to treat you like you treat us. What I'm trying to say is that if the goal in community is to come together, these men are going to have to gain tougher skin, and they're going to have to get the cojones to know that you are standing with a community that is some warriors, and we still in fucking battle. And we're having battle conversations that are important for our narrative, for our survival, for our very destiny. And we're trying to hope that you'll get along the bandwagon with us, but yet still like air we rise. So if you can't get there, that's fine. But when you're in a group and you hear trans women talking and we're trying to engage you in conversation, that is a privilege, because we're still fighting a battle on the street, a battle that you have yet to get in, which is
Right.
also something we're going to talk about in this episode. What you need to be doing is, since you say you love us, how can you be in the battle with us? Well,
Right. I think, and that kind of like, it, sometimes I think the problem for me in this situation, a lot of times with my experiences with men, they always try, they relegate the situation to the specific particular person or the particular incident, but they never zoom out to see the larger picture. And I think the larger, especially if you're going to date in this community, I think we have to have like a real hard conversation about how rampant poverty is in our community. Whether we're in it, whether we're adjacent to it, whether we're one paycheck away from it, and how poverty, particularly for trans women, it impacts how we move in the world. It impacts what decisions we make. So if you a bum ass nigga and you're not about money, even if I'm not on a tricking mindset, if you are not stable and I can't get security from you because we are in poverty and because we're under attack, it might cause me to make some decisions in order to secure the bag for myself. And there's been so many situations where trans-amorous men try to come in and be Captain Super Saber Hall and pull a girl, and it's the fantasy, oh, I'll put you in this house, I'll take care of you, you don't have to do nothing, this, that, and a third. And then a couple of months down the line, the girl is pulling ads up out of your house while you at work. And if this is, from what I hear, this is a story that a lot of men had. But if most men and then sometimes men will use the story to be like, see, that's why I can't fuck with trans women. That's why I can't do that. They're always trying to hustle. Everybody's escort. Everybody's a hooker. But like nobody is zooming out to get to the bigger issue of why girls are in survival mode like that. We're in poverty. So what I'm saying is don't come to the situation with rose-colored glasses. You really have to see what's going on. And part of that requires you being connected to the community, being connected to the movement. Even if you are not at the marches, which I think you should be if you're really trying to partner and you're trying to date somebody. Even if you're not at the marches, you have to know that because we are in poverty or because we are adjacent to poverty, you can like just throwing money at us or throwing that, like that doesn't change our livelihood, or even just having us in a relationship with you. That doesn't absolve us of the issues that we have to deal with us being trans women. And I think because men lack this feminist mindset, because men are operating from this space of patriarchy where they can feel like they can just save us and change our circumstances, and they're not really zooming back to see like the environmental things that are going on, and really play their part to liberate us from what's going on, really risk their privilege in ways to liberate trans women so they can actually find quality trans women that are not in survival mode but are thriving. Mm-hmm. I think until the brothers really zoom out and really ask themselves their hard questions, do you really want a self-actualized trans woman, or do you want a girl that's always surviving? Because if she's surviving, you think she's somehow easier to manipulate.
Exactly.
Sis, come in. I feel your spirit coming in, sis.
Yes. And so this is also now for the trans-amorous men, and this is what my sister said. Y'all don't have the luxury anymore of complaining about the fact that the girls are who they are, especially when you have developed relationships and you have connected with women, or you've podcasted with women, or you know women, or women are in your life that are giving you wisdom to help you understand. Because then it feels very disingenuous when you then go into groups and when you go into places and you complain about the women in your life that are mistreating you, when we know that you are a part of a vicious cycle for yourself. See, a lot of the men still have that we should be grateful complex. And I am very sad I am very happy to inform you, and it's very sad for you to understand that we don't give a fuck about the fact that you like us. That's the bare minimum.
And hold on, sis.
We're worthy.
If you do the I'm grateful thing to a bitch that's in survival mode, that's just trying to get her coins, bitch, you are always going to be turned out. I'm sorry, sis. Come back in.
And that's the point. Girl, I love you. And that's the motherfucking point. But when you try to run that game on girls in community that have a little know-how, you will get got every motherfucking time. You have to humble yourself and know that we're here just like you are here, and we're dealing with all of your shit, and we hoping you're not going to hurt us, and we're hoping at the end of the day that the issues, the traumas, the things that we've been through in our lives are compatible. They don't get erased because I'm with you. I'm not some doll princess that just comes out of nowhere with no baggage and nothing happened. You have to understand that we have to be able to talk to you. We have to be able to share our real selves with you without you freaking out and having moments and stuff. We have to be able to be our real complete selves, because ultimately, men, what we're actually inviting you into, and I love, in a minute, since I want you to please share your philosophy on inviting in. My sister has a wonderful philosophy. She'll share with you in a moment. But when we invite you into our world, you need to know that that is a privilege and an honor, and that we are bringing just as many beautiful gifts and talents to the table. A lot of men think that because they're monetarily more advantaged than a girl, that she should just be his fairy tale princess, and that she should be everything he needs her to be. But what we're asking you is to look at us holistically as people and say, you know what? Maybe she wasn't socialized to be the woman that I want her to be, even from birth. Maybe this woman's journey, while she is beautiful and while she is feminine, her feminine has been rough hewn, and she's a concrete rose that's had to push through adversity to get into the bloom. So then maybe perhaps the woman you're dealing with needs to have a little bit more, you need to have a little bit more compassion and understanding for her, because she needs a little more attention. She may need a little more understanding and patience. And that's what we're saying. It's not enough for you to just love us, and that don't mean a motherfucking thing because you do. Love is not enough in a world where we're being murdered for being who we are. What are you doing for us to help us be better as a people? Not just the girl you love, not just the girl you think is beautiful or attractive, but what are you doing so that, because guess what we do know is that the bullet don't mind how pretty you are in the face. So if you're really saying you love us and you're a man in community that says they want to be invested in our success, why aren't you funding our trans housing programs? Why aren't you helping you? And that stuff you can do anonymously through charitable donations. Right. Get a tax write-off for it. Like, right. Why not actually fund housing programs? Fund domestic violence programs for trans women. Fund actually the infrastructure that we need to be better before you fucking complain about us. But it's too many niggas bragging about how much money they got, but they're not investing that money in us beyond the girls that they either want to pay to fuck, suck, or exploit, because they want to feel like they can use their money to be financially dominant over them. Like, y'all men need to start using your money to invest in us and not control us.
Right. Do you want to bring the conversation into the room where that we had when we were discussing this topic, and we were because it
would only be right, and it's very relevant and topical, and we'll laugh later when we listen back about Clubhouse.
So, no, not about Clubhouse, about the other situation that prompted this conversation about the girl taking advantage of the guy, and because I want to pivot to also what
take it away. I love where you're producing us. Go there. I love it.
No, bring up the conversation because I was approaching it from a macro level. You were saying that it was kind of like a warrant. Okay, so now that we're telling you that we are a community that deals with extreme rates of poverty, extreme marginalization. No matter if you are well-to-do or not, you still have the possibility to be marginalized in some way, and that for guys, you just can't ignore that. Not in 2021, because even if you think it is not impacting your relationship, ultimately, at some level, it will creep into your relationship and it will impact your relationship. And then I am back in our conversation, we were also saying how even with trans women being in survival mode, how sometimes they can be predatory on these men that are not looking deep enough. They're just looking to partner, to be in proximity. And we had a conversation about how we need to be mindful of the predators in the trans community. And then I was on the line of, a bitch has to get her money. Fuck these niggas' feelings. I'm not really worried about their feelings, but I think it's a bigger conversation. Again, how men are looking at they're looking at the shell of us, but they're not looking at our hearts. They're not accounting for our experiences, because you could, like, if somebody is coming in and they're using you for your money, or they're going to come, like, it doesn't just happen out of the blue. You can see it. There's always red flags, but it's like, what is your intention? What are you trying to do? Why do you want to be next to this girl so bad? So we kind of developed into that conversation.
How do you handle the word no?
Right. So, and I think I'm at the point. Are all girls going to be liberated? No. Are all girls going to elevate? No. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. But for these men, and I'm not talking about the men that are like the social pariahs that are linking up with the girls. I'm talking about these trans-amorous men that have careers, that make good money, excuse me, that live a good life. You have to be a little bit more discerning. And the onus is on you to be a little bit more knowledgeable, and the onus on you that even if you're going to get a trans woman that is well-to-do and that has some type of sense, you still need to be open to the possibility that, you know, her life is impacted by this marginalization, and that if you're intentionally going to be with this person, that you're going to have to step up to the plate. And it's just how, like on last season of Pose, when Angel lost her job, her boyfriend had to create a whole modeling agency around her to make sure that she could, like, those are the type of gestures that you are going to have to take to, like, and that's why it's so important for these guys to be political, have some sort of, be on some sort of the spectrum of political activity, especially for trans women, because at some point you're going to have to engage in some activity that's anti-trans or that's pushing back against anti-transness if you are creating a safe space for the woman that you want to be with. Exactly. Like, you need to be modeling that, and it's more than just, I told my mama I like trans women. It's more than just, oh, I'm putting in this girl on my social media. Like, what are you doing if you know you live in a state that doesn't have that is not friendly to trans people, that doesn't have trans rights, or that have systemic barriers for trans women, and you want to marry this girl and you want to be with her? How is your life set up for you and your wife or whatever to move to a state that's a little bit more amenable to trans people, so that you and your spouse can thrive and not just you thriving? Like, is that level of awareness, that level, and these are the type of things you have to consider if you want a healthy relationship. Now, if you want a dysfunctional relationship where the girls is bringing dates in your house at work and y'all are sliding your faces across the glass together, then this conversation is not for you.
Exactly. You know, I feel like this is a great time to bring into the spaces sex work and relationships, because there are a lot of men that will engage in our community and they have this almost willful ignorance, this naivete, that this woman that has come into your life that looks as if she's this goddess that has maybe have even had spent thousands of dollars in surgeries, or she's this woman that has gotten to this place in her life where she's overcome the obstacles. And you hear the story where she tells you, I transitioned at this age, I had this period of homelessness, I went to school, I did these things, I started, you know, if you're an artist, you start recording music or whatever it is, and you hear that journey and you're willfully ignorant to the fact that sex work for a lot of trans women is an integral part of it. And unfortunately, there is still a stigma and a shame that the men carry for the very women that they masturbate to on the computer, for the very women that they follow on OnlyFans, for the very women that they become obsessed with and become infatuated with, for the very object of their lust and desire. They begin to then make her this, and then they break us into two categories: the Madonna and the whore. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is that the girls will often find themselves in an effort to try to get these men's attention. We will fall into that patriarchy, and we will develop this mentality of these girls do this and I am better than them. And then, for the girls that are here, it'll be this narrative of these girls are stupid and I know the real tea about these niggas. And we fall into that, not realizing that the root of that is a societal stigma around sex work, and how these men, because they have, if you notice that even the men, for those of us that are in relationships that have these men, we have to know that our man may have dated hundreds of women before us. Now we hope it's, I mean, let's just keep it 100. And they have learned the language. They've learned what we want to hear. They've learned how to get into our hearts and our minds. And we sometimes can get disillusioned by the fact of what this man represents for our own femininity and the image that we have for our lives. And we don't really see that we're being played, and that they will tell you one thing, and you will feel because he gave you $250, and then on the way home he will stop by the stroll and get him a $40 top off, and you will feel like this man is somebody that is your legit, somebody that really is invested in you and cares. And I want to say that even into sex work, that's why I use the analogy of the guys that are our dates. We have to realize that our own biggest enemy is ourselves when it comes to these niggas. We have to start having more of a sisterhood and a camaraderie, because these men are going to use sex work every time as the trump card, because it's too convenient for them to use it as the trump card every time they need to bring a bitch back down. And I want to empower my sisters right now that you take that stigma off it, and you take that stigma off of your sister. And then these niggas will understand when you're dealing with trans women, that might just be a part of the motherfucking game. What are your thoughts?
The thing that's so crazy to me about that whole situation is that I think that's a symptom of them not acknowledging the reality of the lived experiences of trans women. Because, bitch, I met so many men that I've hooked up with that are like anti-sex worker, have all these feelings about sex workers, but are clearly trans-amorous, but are clearly in the community and still want to engage in you in that transactional way.
Looking for some unicorn bitch that don't exist.
Right. Or they're in the community and they just have these negative thoughts and ideas about trans women who do sex work. But
and this is the reality. All of us don't have the experience of being sex workers, but what all of us do is have the experience of sex work being integral to our trans experience, meaning our loved ones, our friends, our family members have sometimes, died on the stroll. And we have to stop making it a thing when people bring sex work up like it's a negative thing, because what we do know is that there are people doing it to fucking survive. And in the spirit of being a sister, in the spirit of, and this is for Black trans women because that's who we talking to, in the spirit of sisterhood, we have to stop allowing these men to demonize sex work and to use it as a way to manipulate us. Because like my sister's saying, it will always be something that they will then say, even to girls that they feel like don't do it, they'll say, oh, they'll become extremely anti. And we know that's a lie too.
Right, because I've been in situations. Yeah, I've been in situations where I've dated men, and because of where I'm at in life, they go on this anti-sex worker tirade. And it's just like, back in the day when I had to support myself, hey, I was that girl, so bitch, be careful who you talking. What you thought?
And 9 times out of 10, if you meet them on the internet, on a dating site anyway, right, you probably have already paid for sex at some point. These niggas are liars.
Right.
These niggas are fucking liars. We have to stop feeling like our men are above doing what men do. Now, I'm not saying that every man has done it or will do it, but what I am saying is we got to stop allowing them to make it a thing when it's not a motherfucking thing. You're a grown up. And if you paid somebody to have a sexual encounter and it was a safe, healthy encounter and both of you left together unscathed, then what the fuck are we judging? Like, at the end of the day, we know that it is a part of our community. We all know people who can attribute that to their success. Their transitions are paid for on the backs of sex work. So how dare you judge other women for doing what they have to do to survive, when we all know we would do anything to be who we are.
And it's no shade until we live in a world where discrimination against trans people is protected in federally and in all 50 states. Until we live in a world where I, as a trans woman, can go to any job and I don't have to worry about my gender identity being weaponized against me in any type of way, to the point where I'm fired and I'm pushed out. Like, until we live in that world, I think it's unrealistic, and I think it's harmful to have these, for men to have these lofty ideations of what trans women should be and how trans women should show up in the world, because that's just not true. And we like something could change like that, and then you're instantly put in a situation where you have to make these type of decisions. And then it's harder when you're in a relationship with a man, and you're with a man that either doesn't want to acknowledge your lived experience, or you're with a man who simply has no hustle or has no gumption about him, and you're forced to be put into that situation to keep food on the table and to survive.
And that part, sis. I hate that we still live in a world where men, for a lot of girls, is their strategy of survival. That's why I advocate the way I do for trans rights. That's why I have dedicated my life in service to community, because I want to change the narrative that our primary strategy of survival for our community is with a man, because of our oppression. Unfortunately, us often because of our connection to men, the people who have privilege, that we're able to even get what we have. But I want to change that narrative, and I want us to get to the place in the community where we stop feeling like just having a man is enough. When we get to that place where we stop making them feel like loving us is just enough. When we get to that place where we as a community have a higher standard of what we will allow men to say and do and be around us. And more importantly, I'm going to hold it up for my sister as well. It's not about you making me exceptional, making me the one that you live for, making me the girl, and you tell me, and I allow you to come to my inbox and read these other girls and talk about how messy and shady they are, and go in and on and on and on about a bitch I don't even know that don't have nothing to do with me. And you expect that same man to not do the same to you. Because see, what we do know is a dog that'll bring a bone or take a bone too. So if he reading you about this other bitch and telling you all about her business and going in on and about her and how fucked up she was, imagine what he's going to say about you when this inevitably doesn't work. You know why? Because what that man is doing is he's bringing poison into your life and your relationship and what y'all got going on. We have to stop these niggas from even allowing that negative energy from even talk about another girl negatively. Because if I don't know her, then what the fuck? And if she don't have nothing to do with what we're doing right now, then why is she important? When the lioness is in the building, when whoever you are is in the building, why is this other bitch important? How dare you? Because I don't give a fuck who you've been with. You're here now. And I dare you to walk the fuck out of here. And see, that's the mentality that we have to have, and that confidence in ourselves. And I just want us to, as a community, like what my sister's really saying about like the way we kind of, I guess the word I'm picking up is enable. The way we enable bad behavior, kind of with our own insecurities, kind of making us make decisions based on survival. I just don't want us to continue that narrative of survival as a way to date. You really do have to get to the place, and this is for the women out here, and we do have to get to that place where we're okay, where our needs are met, or at least we have a strategy for meeting them, where we are able to get to the place where we're not dependent and our identities are solid, so that when a man comes into our life, there's nothing he can say that will shake us. And even if he leaves, we're still fucking okay. So I am about the business of us being more empowered as a community, us becoming more business owners, us going and getting our education and going and getting more jobs that allow us to have 401ks and long-term stability. This is not saying that sex work still can't happen and still maybe shouldn't for some girls, still should for some girls. Why are they doing that? This isn't shade. But what I would like is for us to get to the place where we're more stable in community, where men and their whims and their shit and their violence isn't something that we have to deal with to survive.
Hey y'all, we want to tell y'all about a new segment that we're starting on a podcast called the Suggestion Box. So that is where you, our listeners, write into us and we can answer your questions. So many of y'all have so many questions that y'all ask us on our various social medias and through other mediums. And we want to give you guys a platform to write into the show so we can give you our raw and honest opinions.
Fellas, you want to know how to get to know a girl? Ladies, you want to know what's going on in our world, or if you want to know what's going on in the world in general, if you just want to ask a question, this is your moment. And we'd love to have you write in.
So make sure to send those letters to box number 512podcast@gmail.com. Again, that's BOXNO 512PODCAST@gmail.com. Our email is in the show notes. So make sure to send those letters in, guys. And who knows, maybe we might read your letter on the next show. Yeah. Okay, y'all, back to the show. No, I definitely agree with that as well. What did you have another part of this conversation about? It was something else we wanted to say towards the women and how they can be low key, how they can kind of take advantage of the situation and tarnish the men.
Yes. So I can speak generally on it, and I know we can go deeper as we get into it, bitch, because that's what we fucking do. I was gonna say, I do see a trend in community of women understanding that we do suffer from violence at a disproportionate rate, understanding that we are in a situation where we are marginalized and we're oppressed, and they use their victimization to be manipulative and to create situations for their own survival, which we understand is important, that often can be at the detriment and put themselves in danger, and also be a detriment to their partners and to their friends and to people in their lives. And it's kind of like this mentality, sometimes when you have not had in your life so much and you've lost connections with people, you can become jaded and get to the place where you would do anything to survive. And sometimes it can be at the expense of your moral compass. Because I do believe we are genuinely a loving people, and naturally we tend towards love. That's the gag. That's right. The gag nobody will receive. We are actually loving as fuck, and we tend towards love. But I do believe as a strategy, sometimes we can become jaded, and the world can harden us in a way where we can get to the place where we will take advantage of anybody. And I just want us women out there to be careful that when we're selecting our partners, when we're connecting with people, that we're being genuine, that we're being authentic, that we aren't allowing our past to affect how we engage, that we aren't being jaded and holding men responsible for our fathers, responsible for the men that came before them. Because I will say, that no one will sit at a table when love is no longer being served. So you have to be willing to be vulnerable and let a man into that sensitive place, and not see every man as a mark, and not see every man necessarily as a way to come up in some way. Because I do know that there are women out there that will meet a man that is green, that don't know a lot about community, that's coming with a lot of love in his heart, and really maybe even patriarchal, naive expectations. Maybe he might be kind of, because a lot of times men will be grown ass men, but they're still new to this. So right. Maybe even naive to the community and how to engage. And girls will zero in on that man. And then they will all of a sudden kind of see and begin to strategize on the maximum benefit for themselves. And I just want us to, as a community, remember that they are humans too. And remember that to be honest, if we want to say that it's a blessing to be in our presence, we have to remember to be a blessing to other people, and that just means being the loving individuals that we already are. I'm not asking you to do extra. I'm just saying let him know how beautiful you really are to be able to go through so much in life and still be so beautiful.
Yeah, right. You don't have to turn everybody into a gang. Like it's some people that I come across, and I can tell that they are genuinely nice people. And maybe I'm not in the right headspace, or maybe I'm. They want more than I can offer. It's not like it's no slight in letting a man go, or like, because I know for me, I don't want to be that girl that tarnishes that man for the next girl. And I feel like if he's a good partner, I'll let you go to the next girl. Like, I don't want to ruin it for you. And I think what you're saying, as a result of the shit that we go through, sometimes it can cause us to kind of dehumanize ourselves and see everybody as an opportunity, and that really takes away from your opportunity to really connect with people and to really see the goodness in people. Because I'm not saying that every trans, now let's be clear, I'm not saying that every trans-amorous man is bad, or I am anti trans-amorous man, but there are some good ones out here, or there are some ones with good hearts. And I too have seen trans women go into a good situation and take advantage of it. But also on the flip side, it's like, men, sometimes you have to know when you being taken on a ride, and you have to mature yourself and to train yourself to see when a person is acting from a place of hurt. Because only a hurt person would want to take advantage of somebody that's coming in love and that's coming in genuineness.
Exactly. And if you if you really say you care about us as a community, you would understand that while that woman should not be in your life if she's toxic and she's creating this crazy dynamic with you and she's not giving you the respect that you deserve as a man, if she's in your life and she's not giving you what you need, we're not saying tolerate toxicity. What we are saying, though, is don't demonize her after the fact. Especially when you knew all of those other factors that were included to begin with, that may have led her to be that quote unquote crazy bitch, or that quote unquote lazy bitch, or that quote unquote whatever it is you want to call her afterwards. Remember that you knew going in that she may have had issues with her family, that she may not be as educated as she wanted to be, that she may have had to do what she had to do to survive in life. Know all of those factors are with that same woman when you go reading her in the streets. Talk about how the warrior she is and what she's overcome while you telling everybody how bad she treated you and this and then the third. Because see, what niggas won't do is tell about your glory while they telling about your shame. So what we're saying is if you're really amorous and you're invested in us as a community, even in your breakups, there should be a level of decorum in the way that you're engaging with women. If you say you're amorous to the community, meaning amor, meaning love. If you love us, there should be a way even you handle it, just as a man, in your way you treat your women. It should just be a line on what you're willing to just do out publicly. I'm also gagged by the amount of men that are bitter in groups, in public spaces. They have their own internal angst that's like spilling over in the public spaces and like really putting this toxic kind of like every time they have an issue with a woman, you could tell it's a breakup, or you could tell they had some type of issue, and they come in the group and then they just spew this vitriol all into women's spaces. I mean, into a mixed space that with women that are trying to get to know your motherfucking ass. And I just find that to be so sad, because it shows you how fragile these men are. It shows you just how insensitive they are. Like it would be like you having a problem with black women and then going to a black women's group and a group with black women in it, and then just going off. I have to say that because sometimes these men that engage with trans women forget that we're fucking women, and that we're sensitive, and that we're vulnerable, and that we come from a place of love most of the time. And it's gagging to log into a group expecting to see cute niggas and flirt, and they reading you. Like, what is that about?
And girl, they look homeless from their profile pictures.
Girl, even
and it's
more
like, how are
so.
you doing this? Because the public libraries are closed. So how do you have internet access? And why are your pictures outside, like in nature and greenery? Why is there never a picture of you like in a home?
Why is there never a shirt on, even in your lives? Ever. Like, and you don't have muscles. So it's just an apparent attempt at showing us, at trying to be sexy in a struggle. Like, I'm not reading the fact that you're in struggle, but it's like, how dare you then come into this community that low key is doing the best they can to survive and doing apparently better than you. And you got a lot of shit to say.
Right.
Like, hey, don't be mad because you in the struggle, bitch. Pull yourself up. Don't try to trash other people.
Right. That see through the bullshit. But I think for me, the most important takeaway from this conversation, especially for the men, is like you have to consider all things. You can't just take each trans woman you meet in a vacuum. I just feel like that's a recipe for disaster, especially in the times that we're living in, some of the circumstances that we're up against. And it's just like that whole Madonnaization of trans women and how like we're beautiful and we're perfect and we fit, like nobody, like again what you said, I rarely, when I date men, I rarely come across men that considers the experiences that I had to go through to get to this point, and some of the experiences and forces that I still have to go through to remain in my position. And no shade, maybe if you thought about all that I had to do to maintain and remain in this position, it would force you to be a better man to add to that to help me to maintain that. But it's always about how, it's always self-serving. Like, how can I get the most out of this for me?
And it is what can I get out of this the best for me? And it's also, why do I have to deal with anything that is an issue? Why do I have to deal with any of your issues? And men are really confused as to why you have to engage with them as a whole person. It's like, oh, she's beautiful and all that and the third, but she just seemed traumatized. Every time I touch her, she cringe. It's like, why do you think that could be? Or it's, oh, every time I'm around this girl, she acts this way or she's this way. And it's like, a lot of it is like, if you just had just a dash of empathy, take this out of this woman that you want to fuck and make it your sister. Why would your sister be in a place?
But the shade is they're not even into cis women, because it's cis women and black cis women and whole marriages with men, black cis men that voted for fucking Trump. It's like, it's as simple as I can't partner or be with somebody that has interests that are adverse to my best interests. Like, I just can't, like in 2021 going forward, I just can't do it. I just couldn't, because at this point is dangerous. And that's why you're seeing, especially with black trans women, we're not really partnering with the trans-amorous men, and that's why they feel slighted about it. But it's just like, you talk to some of them, and like, going back to why you need to be interested in a feminist politic, a lot of their politics are fucked up. And this is like, I know you can't love me if you're not willing to acknowledge how you carry privilege. Like, I know, or you just don't want to talk about it, or you don't want to deal with it. I have no faith that you can love me and show up for me the way that I need you to show up for me.
Exactly. And if I don't have that confidence in you, then you can't expect for me to be investing very deeply in what we have going on when you haven't created the safe space for me to feel comfortable being my full self.
Right. You can't, hey beautiful, hey sexy, your way out of me finding out like what values you hold. Like, you can't do that, because you calling me baby, you calling me sexy, that doesn't keep me safe. That doesn't give me peace of mind. That doesn't give me the sense of security that when I'm dealing with something, because I am trans, that you will intervene, or you'll be emotionally available to provide the extra support to get me through that difficult or troublesome time.
Exactly. And to the point where I feel like, so, and this is just to reiterate for the guys, you creating a narrative with a woman, even if you say to her, I'm just so glad you're not like these other girls, and you make her the Madonna, you're doing her a disservice, because you're not actually considering her as a full person, and you're putting her on an unrealistic pedestal to always fail. Because what you're expecting is for this woman to not have any stains, anything, any traumas, any issues, and you're really, really not allowing her to be a full person. And then every time your hopes are dashed, because what you've done is you take this person and you make them this ideal, and then they become a figure of your imagination, something not found in reality. And they find themselves, and I know so many trans women find themselves trying to live up to this imaginary person that their man has created. So then it does not serve the Madonna either for you to elevate her, and for you to not be concerned about what she's been through in her life, for you not to consider that maybe she's had to have engaged in sex work, for you not to consider that maybe she was sexually assaulted,
or maybe she's going to be depressed for the
soldier.
next, or she's going to be depressed for the next week because 3 trans women were murdered in fucking Chicago back to
And how
back to
that
back.
affects her, and how she may know them, or how that may make
Or
I don't want to be intimate with you.
I don't want to be intimate with you while I'm processing my grief.
Right. And I'm processing grief while with you, and you're putting me in this place where I can't really be my full self with you, because that's not what you want to deal with. You just want to deal with somebody that's just peaceful and all about you. On the flip side, when you go and you deal with these women that are doing what they have to do to survive, these women that are sex workers, don't you dare call them a whore, and then talk and engage with them, lust over them, subscribe to their OnlyFans, be in their life, and make these women, who are wonderful women, who have wonderful attributes, who are talented, who own businesses, who are also sisters and mothers and daughters and community leaders, how dare you then reduce them, because you see them in this way that is transactional, to just whores, and you talk down about them, and you make them feel, or you even treat them in a way that you don't give them their dignity, or you make them feel like their life can be in danger because they're not giving you what you want. Like, at the end of the day, these niggas, the same nigga often, will go to one girl and try to make her his Madonna, and then go to this other girl and try to make her a whore, and will treat equally both of those women like shit, because neither one of those women are ever going to meet the standards of a man whose whole purpose is to divide and conquer. And that's what we gotta check in community, is the idea that we've allowed that mentality to affect the way we see each other, to start policing girls on what they look like, and how she shouldn't even be in my, how could you even be with her and me? Like, none of that shit matters at the end of the fucking day. And what matters at the end of the day is that we as a people can come together and unpack the toxic shit that niggas put on us, the stigmas that society put on us, that society put on our niggas. Like, we got to stop taking that white supremacist, white centric way of looking at ourselves and our experience and the way it's been pathologized, and taking that shit to heart. We got to start looking at our men, looking at our relationships as worthy and whole and complete. And it also means that we gotta start checking that negative shit in us. For real.
Yes. Yeah. So again, I think my takeaway for this particular conversation for the men, like, I challenge you, as you are figuring yourself out and you are becoming more firm in your identity. I challenge you to consider the totality of experiences that make up the trans woman that you are pursuing, because life is happening to us, with us, around us, and we are not exempt. And we need you to, we don't need you to be Captain Super Saberho, or think, well, if I give her this money or I put her in this house, like, that's not a guarantee for nothing. I could be sitting in the lap of luxury girl, and because of my upbringing, or because I feel like in my mind, I have to do this to survive, girl, I might flip and do something I'm not supposed to do. What I'm saying is, don't judge. Talk to your partner. Get into their experiences. Don't try to save them. Just be there beside them, to be a presence, to let them know that even if you don't understand it, that you'll be a constant, and that they won't feel alone. Because even in a relationship, even in an interaction, you can still feel alone because your partner is not trans. So it's only so much that a cis man is going to know about your experience as a trans person. It just is what it is, but it doesn't mean that you can't you guys should really be learning what it means to be allies in your own relationships.
Before we go, I also want to acknowledge, shout out to the trans men that are trans-amorous. It is not that we know it because we don't really talk specifically to you as the community often. It is not because we don't love you or appreciate you. It's because in a lot of ways you're not as toxic. You
right.
And so it's not the admission of your experience here. It's not because neither I nor she don't see you. It's because we really see you, but we don't want you to get no heat from some shit that ain't yours to hold. A lot of the toxic behavior that comes to us
lies exclusively with the cis men.
Exclusively with men, particularly for Black trans women, Black cis men. And so that's what we're talking to when we're reading. So I just want you to know I love you, and I thank you for your existence, brothers. And I want to take that moment to acknowledge you because I know that there are trans-amorous trans men. And I thank y'all for being here.
Anytime that I've ever dated or talked to a Black trans man, there's this level of it's this level of the unspoken. I don't have to explain to you certain situations because you already know. Yeah. You already. It's that understanding of navigating through life as trans identified people. But you're right. This particular conversation is not your burden. Cis people, you have to be aware, and you have to be mindful, and you have to if you really want the love, it's not about you just doing things and you just get the love. It's about you really being in relationship with these folks. And if you're in relationship, when you're in relationship with people, you'll be able to get back what you put in, but you can't just come in and just engage in this performance and then be surprised when life happens and shit goes left.
Exactly.
And also, I think to the women, I would challenge them to feel more comfortable to break out of your shell when you're in these relationships with these trans men. Really, when you're dealing with these men, really empower yourself, really encourage yourself, really model to yourself what it looks like to not only stand in the fullness of your truth, but to communicate that to people that you are in close proximity to. Because what I've learned from dating and interacting with a lot of cis men, they are not mind readers. They are just not mind readers. And you have to at least be able to say that you said it in the event that they try to pull, well, I didn't think, be comfortable with telling your stories. And also, I think we kind of have to destigmatize the transness in our own mind, because everybody wants to be so powerful and to be the girl that everybody looks up to, that nobody really wants to admit how they are being hit by transphobia every day, because they think that it'll make them look weak. They think it'll be a chip in their armor. And it's no, we got to get real about our experience with transphobia and how it impacts us, how it impacts our decision making, so that we can be able to clearly and truthfully communicate why we do the things that we do in our relationships, because they do impact. We don't exist in a vacuum. Everything impacts everything. So I think the more clearer, even if you're not a girl that is a sex work girl, it's some trans women, even myself, we have a very intense work ethic that, for me, if I don't check it, it can it can get in the way of me really fostering relationships with romantic relationships with men. And a lot of that stems from my fear of, my fear of being fired or my fear of being treated badly in my jobs. Because I don't want to get fired.
And that's a real stressor that that other people may not realize. The idea that I know that it is an easy excuse to let me go. Because for a lot of people, just my presence can make people uncomfortable. Now, that's not saying specifically about your job, but we all kind of come with that feeling of that fear of rejection, and how that stress can be just even like you say at work. This idea that if I get too sick or if something happens to me, imagine the girls that are frontline workers working in retail right now or working in the grocery stores. Like they don't they we the men that are dating them need to understand those girls are going to be stressed the fuck out, like on top of dealing with people that are stressed out in their worst place. They're having to deal with people that don't want to wear masks, that are stressing them the fuck out. I have sisters that are working right now that I just wish. I also want to put that in the space for the men. Have patience, because even the minorest things that you do in your life that you may not think about can cause a lot of stress for a girl, and she may not necessarily want to unpack that with you always and stress you out with it, or even relive the trauma all the time. But you never know what she went through just from leaving the house to getting to work to back, leaving your house to get just to get gas or back. What somebody may have said to her, how she might have felt unsafe. Like all of those things are affected. And I feel like you guys just need to remember that you chose to deal with a community that is one of the most marginalized communities in the world right now. That whose whole life is really in danger until the world gets a little bit more sane about our experience and it starts to become a little more compassionate. But until then, you got to be willing to be more compassionate with us and understand that we are a people that is in struggle, a people that is in war right now. And you have to remember that we really just want to live. And if you're going to live with us, you're going to have to roll with the punches, baby. Because this ain't something easy.
Right? It's not easy. It's
This
not
actually might be
easy.
the hardest relationship you've ever had, and that's not her fault.
Right. And and a lot of y'all are just getting here. We've been here, so grow some thick skin. Grow some thick skin. But I don't know. I feel like this conversation is sonically different than the first one. But I hope that you all get something out of it. I think we done an episode.
I think so too. This is exciting, exciting, exciting. So really fast, because I know we didn't really get into it last episode. But before we leave, I want to give our viewers just a chance. So, sis, what is for 2021? Can you tell me do you have any resolutions? What are some things you want to work on? What are some things you see in the horizon for this year? Let's do a prediction so we can listen back later.
Girl, I think we did this on the 2020 the reflection episode.
Right, but this is the new year. Do you have anything that's changed?
No, like my stuff is still the same. Like just to continue on my health journey, to find new employment, to elevate in my career, to make it through this Biden transition. But no, I just want to. I want the world to calm down a little bit because I want to travel more. Like and now I want to. I don't want to. Even though I go on my vacations, I want to get to a point where men don't dictate where I go for my vacation. Like I just want to be able to go somewhere, not worry about like what niggas I'm going to see, and just have a good time and create a like the men will always be there. Like men will always be like I want, or even when I'm in a city, even when I was on my vacation for break, like I purposely made myself like get a hotel that's like downtown, or don't get somewhere that's easily accessible and it's like, oh, the parking is easier so the man will be able to come. No, because that's me centering men. No, if you want to come see me, come pay the $20 to park in the hotel garage. And if you can't afford it, bitch, you don't need to be driving and you don't need to see me. But it's really about me divesting from men in a way where where I center myself and I'm being led by like my thoughts, my inhibitions, my desires, and really kind of decentering from like the wants and needs of what a man wants. Like, no, this is my life, this is my vacation, this is my luxury. And if you can't rise to the occasion, you don't need to be here.
Exactly. And that's the bottom line. Is making these men ride. You're trans is the default. Now what? Like, it's not just enough to love us. What the fuck now are you gonna do to help not just your girl, but the world your girl lives in be a better place?
All right. What about you?
Oh, girl. So I wanted to add into the space. So for my listeners, for those of you out there who are also equally talented individuals, who everybody says, should do more, could do more, would do more, I am going to come out of my shell more this year, and I'm going to overcome my anxiety. I have diagnosed anxiety. I want to share that with our listeners because I know that I'm not the only one. And that can be very stifling to you wanting people to really check for you, particularly in what we're doing. And I want to grow as a podcaster. And I am very critical of myself. And I have all of these saboteur thoughts in my head that make me question my just my worth in the world as far as doing this talk thing that we do. I've done it in a professional capacity, but just in front of the camera and be embracing this is just interesting, and the promotion that has to go along with it. So my commitment for this new year is to do better at promoting this podcast and my own, and to really, really get behind my content and to not get in my own way, and to really also, I have the desire to pursue maybe somehow start getting my education towards becoming a therapist or a licensed professional, or at least getting some type of counseling licensure, because I realize that is a gift that I have, and I play that role for so many of my loved ones, even my mom, my family. And I'm the person that people call when they need to work through things. And that's powerful. But I would love to be able to have different strategies that I could use and marry it with my education background to be able to, come up with curriculums for mental health to help the girls in community, kind of in the ways that we were talking, to come up with modules that could help them online, even work through strategies to kind of help deal with certain situations and traumas and things. So I have big dreams for myself, and this year I'm going to start allowing myself to step in them, and I'm excited for that. And confessing that out loud will be something that is forcing on the record for me to do. Like, it's time for me to step out of the tower, the ivory tower, step out of this comfort bubble that I'm in and step into my own future.
Well, sis, I will be holding you accountable, bitch, and be checking in, girl. So be ready to step into your truth, honey.
Yes. I love everybody. So as we end this episode, this has been another episode of Box Number 512 Podcast, Grown Black Trans Woman Talk. We thank you for all of your patronage and love thus far, and for your listening to the last couple of episodes. I know they've been wonderful. And shout out to our Patreon people, because we love and thank you for tuning in. This episode was great, and we just want everyone to know that love, if the root of the word trans-amorous is love is what matters. This has been another episode of Box Number 512 Podcast, Grown Black Trans Woman Talk. I am the Lioness.
And I am Aeon. Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Box Number 512 Podcast, Grown Black Trans Woman Talk.
And don't forget to become a patron on the Box Number 512 Patreon page, where we have all new exclusive content.
And also, don't forget to follow us on our social media, on our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook pages. And also, become a subscriber on our YouTube page. Until next time, Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Box number 512 podcast, Grown Black Trans Women Talk.
And don't forget to become a patron on the Box number 512 Patreon page, where we have all new exclusive content.
And also, don't forget to follow us on our social media, on our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook pages. And also, become a subscriber on our YouTube page. Until next time, bye.